Hello, everyone, and welcome to this important episode of Ignition Time. Today is the day when the massive $1.9 trillion stimulus package passes the House and it's expected to go to the president's desk for signature sometime within the next 24 hours. This is an important day, everyone. Hopefully, by the time you watch this video, the House Democrats are already voting on it or are preparing to vote for it, or better yet, have already voted for it and it has already passed the House. But in this video, I want to talk to you about the silent architect of the $1.9 trillion stimulus plan. Perhaps not so silent if you consider how vocal the independent senator from Vermont, Bernie Sanders, is. There he is. What's up, Bernie? Now, I believe Bernie Sanders is the silent architect of the $1.9 trillion stimulus plan because he essentially set up the building blocks along with the Biden team for this massive American rescue plan. In fact, here's an article on your screen from CNN which states that the United States is about to begin an experiment, an ambitious experiment in progressive government, because with these programs that are part of the American Rescue Plan, there is essentially what some would call a dependence on government, but what others would call a greater role of government in helping those who need it the most. You be the judge. Let's take a look at this important segment with Senator Bernie Sanders. He was interviewed in the past 48 hours on CNN, and this gives us a lot of insight into the thinking of the Democrats. He says this is the most progressive piece of legislation that has been passed for working families in decades. He also says, hey, the Republicans are upset because we're not helping big businesses, we're not helping large corporations, and we're helping the average American. We're helping the working man. I want you to watch Senator Bernie Sanders, and I want you to comment below and let me know whether you agree or disagree with his comments. Let's roll the tape and hear from Senator Sanders.
On this legislation, Senate Budget Committee Chairman, Senator Bernie Sanders. Chairman Sanders, thanks for being with us. So you hear what Speaker Pelosi says. It looks as though the bill is on track to be signed by President Biden this week. Obviously, it doesn't include a federal minimum wage hike, something you were very determined, I know, to include. Despite that, are you satisfied with what the bill ended up with?
Anderson, in my view, this is the most significant legislation for working people that has been passed in decades. And what this legislation is about is looking out around our country in the midst of this terrible pandemic, the economic decline, the fact that our education of our kids has been disrupted, that people are facing eviction, families are facing hunger. We've looked at all of these issues and we said, what can we do? And I think what shocks many in the establishment, and certainly my Republican colleagues, is that we wrote a bill to address the crises facing working families and the middle class and low income people, and not the wealthy and large corporations and their lobbyists. So this bill is enormously significant. And at the top of our list is the understanding that the American people know to be true, is that we're not going to get our kids back to school safely. We're not going to get our economy humming the way it should be and create the millions of jobs we need to create unless we crush the pandemic. And we are putting billions of dollars into making sure that we are producing the amount of vaccines that we need, and we're developing a mechanism to get those vaccines into the arms of the American people. The Biden administration, I think, in the last month has made real progress, but we have a long, long way to go. Because every day that somebody is not getting a vaccine is a day that that person may get the COVID virus and die.
Well, one thing's for sure, Senator Sanders has a lot of energy. In the next segment, he talked about the importance of the $15 an hour minimum wage, and he said that the great crisis facing America is that half of the working population lives paycheck to paycheck. The last time, I just want to remind our viewers and subscribers, the minimum wage was raised was in 2009 when it was raised to $7.25. Well over a decade ago when the minimum wage was raised. So the minimum wage increase is indeed long overdue. Let's roll the tape and hear from Bernie Sanders as he talks about the importance of raising the minimum wage, and in a very important sign, he signals that the battle is far from over, and he basically says the Democrats will pass $15 an hour minimum wage. Let's roll the tape and watch this very significant segment, especially the last portion of this clip. Let's watch.
In terms of the $15 an hour minimum wage, how do you want to proceed with that? Because clearly that's still something on your agenda.
Oh, it is absolutely on my agenda, Anderson. If you were to ask me what the great crisis in the American economy is today, we can talk about a lot of things. But to my mind, the fact that half of our people are living paycheck to paycheck, and that many millions of people are working for starvation wages for $8, $9, $10 an hour. You can't live on that. Minimum wage has not been raised by Congress since 2007, and it stands today at $7.25 an hour. So we are developing a strategy. And if anybody thinks that the vote that we had the other day on the minimum wage is the last vote that is taking place this session, they're very, very wrong.
Because
pass that bill.
there are some Democrats who did not want that.
I know. Believe me, I know. But at the end of the day, the American people want it. Overwhelmingly, large numbers of people support raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour. 8 states have already voted to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. Many communities and cities have done the same. So we're going to do what the American people want, and in one way or another, we are going to pass the $15 an hour minimum wage.
And in the next segment, Sanders is setting up the stage for the Build Back Better agenda, for the massive $3 trillion infrastructure plan designed to reinvent our roads, our bridges, designed to modernize our internet, designed to create new jobs in clean energy as far as the Democrats are concerned. Folks, this is going to be a big battle between the Republicans and the Democrats, because the Republicans are going to be like, hey, who's going to pay for this? In fact, I'll show you an interesting segment from Matt Gaetz, the lawmaker from Florida, who basically called this a Trojan horse of Democratic spending. But first, let's take a look at what Sanders said. He said Republicans have turned their backs on the needs of American families, and he said they used reconciliation back in 2007 to pass a massive $2 trillion tax cut for the ultra-wealthy, and they used reconciliation to try and gut the Affordable Care Act, to try and destroy Obamacare. Let's roll the tape and hear Bernie Sanders as he essentially says it like it is. Let's watch.
I want to go back to something you said at the beginning, that you think this is the most significant piece of legislation in decades. Can you just talk more about why you think that is? And what does it say that, the first relief at the beginning of this pandemic got overwhelming Republican support as well? This got no Republican support. What does that say to you?
Well, it says to me that the Republicans have turned their back on the needs of working families. They used the reconciliation process a few years ago to give $1 trillion in tax breaks to the top 1% and large corporations. They used the reconciliation process to try to repeal the Affordable Care Act and throw 30 million people off of the health care that they had. What we are using reconciliation for is to address the crises facing working families. What does that mean? It means that hopefully within a couple of weeks, some 85% of American households will receive a direct payment check. Now, that direct payment will be $1,400 for every working class adult, individuals $75,000 or less, couples $150,000 or less, plus your children. Family of 4 gets help of $5,600. And in the midst of this crisis, God only knows that millions and millions of families desperately need that boost. What this legislation does, Anderson, is it addresses a crisis that this country has ignored for too long. We have one of the highest rates of childhood poverty of any major country on earth. This legislation will expand the child tax credit and lower childhood poverty in America by up to 50%. Yeah, we're going to pay attention to the kids in America, many of whom are struggling for a variety of reasons. This legislation says that in the richest country in the history of the world, people should not be going hungry. In my community, Burlington, Vermont, a few months ago, hundreds of cars lined up for emergency food packages. It's taken place all over this country. This legislation provides help so that when the moratorium on evictions ends, people will get assistance to stay in their homes, whether it's a rental unit or your own home. This legislation more than doubles funding for community health centers. In my state, about 25% of people get their medical care, they get their dental care, they get low-cost prescription drugs, mental health counseling through community health centers. We've more than double funding it. We're putting money into getting doctors into underserved areas. We're putting money into making sure that millions of workers do not lose the pensions that they were promised. So this legislation is quite comprehensive in attempting to address the needs of working families. And obviously, the next reconciliation bill will deal with the structural problems, not just the emergency problems of how we can create millions of good-paying jobs, rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure, and transforming our energy system to protect us from climate change.
Boy, oh boy, that was interesting. And if you thought that was something, wait till you hear comments from Congressman Matt Gaetz from Florida. This is what he said in a recent interview on Fox. It's a Trojan horse for socialism. It is everything Democrats have wanted, wrapped and branded in the pandemic so that people are scared into voting for it. He also says, this is only the beginning, and we are about to see massive inflation in this country as a consequence of no real pressure against the printing of money. Folks, this is the best argument that the Republicans have against the $1.9 trillion stimulus package. So guess what happens a year from now? If we have inflation, the Republicans are like, I told you so, I told you so. It's more expensive to buy milk, it's more expensive to buy bread, it's more expensive to buy gas. And if there's no inflation, they'll simply stop talking about it. And like all politicians do, they'll move on to something else in order to further divide us. As I've mentioned before on my channel, politics is about timing. It's about opportunity. It's about tribalism, us against them. Always seek to essentially paint the opposition as, the bad guys. And then the final component is perception. The perception that the Republicans are trying to create is that Democrats essentially are liberal. They have a liberal wish list, and all they want to do is spend money. And then, there'll be inflation, there'll be a weakening of the dollar, and this, that, and the other. And the Democrats want to position the Republicans as being pro-business and not looking after the common man. Let's roll the tape and hear from Congressman Matt Gaetz, the Republican from Florida, as he claims that this massive stimulus plan is a Trojan horse for larger spending and for bigger problems in the future. Let's watch.
Senator Manchin and Senator Sanders and a range of Democrats in between just voted to support a $1.9 trillion package that is the most progressive piece of legislation in history. So I would say we feel pretty good about that.
Joining me right now is Florida Congressman and House Armed Services Committee and Judiciary Committee member Matt Gaetz. Congressman, it's great to see you again. Thanks very much for being here. You just heard Jen Psaki call it what it is. Your reaction?
It is a Trojan horse for socialism. It is everything Democrats have wanted wrapped and branded in coronavirus so that people are scared into voting for it. And the point that was made by your financial panel earlier is entirely correct. This is only the beginning, and we are about to see massive inflation in this country as a consequence of no real pressure against the printing of money. The only reasons that we haven't seen that inflation yet, one, we've had downward pressure as a result of the lower cost of transmitting data. Second, the dollar continues to be very attractive globally for people to acquire. And I think that as we roll into the second and third rounds of stimulus, you put the dollar as the global reserve currency in more jeopardy than it is today.
In the meantime, President Biden has been busy pushing the benefits of the American Rescue Plan and encouraging people to get vaccinated. Here's a tweet on your screen from the President of the United States. From launching community vaccination centers around the country to deploying mobile vaccination units to hard-to-reach areas, the American Rescue Plan will help vaccinate America quickly and equitably. Let's show you this image on your screen from the President of the United States. The American Rescue Plan will make vaccines free for all, provide vaccine access in hard-to-reach areas, establish more locations to get vaccinated, and hire more health professionals for the administration of vaccines. And finally, I'm mentioning this because I actually think it's funny. Here's the headline on your screen from CNN. President Biden's signature will not appear on the third stimulus check. And this was an announcement from the White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki. In case you're wondering, what? How does that matter? Well, it matters because for the former president, his signature, his imprint on the stimulus checks was very important to him. Here's a quote from former President Trump. I'm sure people will be very happy to get a big, fat, beautiful check and my name is on it. And by the way, the former U.S. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin said, oh, it was my idea. So there was that chaos and that confusion about the signature on the stimulus check. And the Democrats complained about this because they saw this as a political maneuver leading up to the general election. Yes, that did indeed happen with the prior administration, a need to put a signature on a stimulus check as opposed to getting large checks out to people as quickly as possible. That is how our politics was in the past. Let me know what you think in the comment section below about Bernie Sanders being the silent architect of this massive $1.9 trillion stimulus plan. Let me know whether you think this is the beginning of progressive government. This is a vast expansion of permanent welfare programs, as some Republicans would put it. And let me know if you think this is a Trojan horse for bigger problems down the road, as Congressman Matt Gaetz from Florida put it. Let me know if you agree with Bernie Sanders or if you agree with Matt Gaetz. Let me know in the comment section below. By the way, I can assure you both Bernie Sanders, Senator Sanders, and Congressman Matt Gaetz, when they watch Ignition Time, they click the like button, they subscribe, they enable notifications, and when they do that, that brings a big smile to my face like this. That's it, everybody. Thank you so much. Please click the like button. Please subscribe. Please enable notifications. I would really appreciate that. That helps me out a lot. That helps out the YouTube algorithm. And that is your vote of confidence in our channel. I'll be sure to provide you the latest news, the truth, wherever it might lead us. Thank you so much for watching. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode of Ignition Time. And today is an important day because I believe the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan will pass the House today. Hopefully, it's already passed the House by the time you watch this video. Thank you so much for watching. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode of Ignition Time. Take care. Bye.